The History of Poland Podcast, Episode 41, The Machinations of Conrad of Masovia. Hello and welcome back. Last time we left off with the first Mongol invasion of Poland. While the stated goal of the Mongol invasion had been to prevent the Poles from coming to the aids of the Hungarians, the Mongols quickly realized that the fragmentation of the Poles had created a land almost wholly undefended, or at the very least, ill-defended. The lack of preparation and cohesion then led to the sack of Krakow. Now, if this was some adventure novel, you'd expect something like the following to take place. The heroic but embattled leaders of the Polish people decide that they're stronger together than they are apart, and, considering that they're facing a new enemy, that they need to be strong at this particular time. As such, they're going to die to themselves and choose to put aside their grievances. They'd unite under someone who may not be everyone's favorite, but who is a capable leader who can lead Poland to a safe and secure future. Is this realistic? No. But it would be a nice ending to this phase of Poland's history. Alas, it is not the ending we get. Instead, what happens is almost the complete opposite. There is no selfless action on the part of the princes and dukes of Poland. There is no unity. There is only opportunity. The first to seize the opportunity is Conrad of Masovia. If you'll recall, Conrad did not take part in the defense of Poland. Rather, Conrad was safe and sound in his Masovian lands. Sure, there's a possibility that Conrad knew it was futile to fight back against the Mongols, or maybe he just didn't find out about the invasion until it was too late. But, and this is just my personal opinion, both of those things seem unlikely. What I find a lot more likely is that Conrad wanted to preserve his army, so that after this horde from the east left, he would suddenly be the most powerful person in Poland. Which is exactly what happened. Or it's what Conrad might have wished would happen. Jan Długosz tells us that, quote, when the disgruntled Conrad learns of the second sack of Krakow, knowing that his nephew Bolesław the Chaste has fled to Hungary, and from there to Moravia, and that the flower of the knights of Krakow, Sandomierz, Wrocław, and Opole had been killed, so that these lands are all but deserted, he decides to annex them. He assembles as large a force as his means allow, and with this and some troops sent him by the Duke of Pomerania, moves in and occupies both territories with all their castles and forts, the inhabitants submitting to his rule and authority, for none believes that Duke Bolesław will ever return. The one exception is the voivode of Krakow, who prepares to defend the castle at Skala in the name of Duke Bolesław. Conrad does not interfere, but builds a fortress in Krakow itself extending from the Cathedral of St. Wacław and the chapel with the altar of St. Thomas to the Church of St. Gereon, and thence to the Rotunda of the Blessed Virgin. Having seen to all this, he returns to Masovia. Meanwhile, Bolesław the Bald, wishing to avenge this offense, assembles his own knights and with these and a few German mercenaries, marches on Krakow. While he is attempting to take the fort, Duke Conrad arrives with a much stronger force than his, so, not daring to risk a fight, Bolesław withdraws, leaving the voivode in Skala Castle. End quote. This looks like a winning strategy now. After all, possession is 9/10 the law, and in medieval Europe I'd probably argue that possession is 10/10 the law, and Conrad now possesses Krakow, the jewel of Poland. But you don't just need to possess lands, you need to keep them. And as we've seen, there are two threats to holding onto lands. The first is by being invaded and having someone else take them from you by force. See, the Mongols. The second is by having your own subjects rise up against you and force you out. See, many Piast princes. To deal with the first, you want to have strong defenses, a capable military, and a great intelligence network. To deal with the latter, you need to make sure that you treat your subjects well. Or at the very least make them believe that they're being treated well. Does Conrad pay attention to both of these basic principles? No, he does not. Długosz tells us that, quote, as soon as he has gained possession of Krakow, Sandomierz, and Lublin, Duke Conrad imposes heavy tribute on everyone alike, clergy or knight, inhabitant of town or village, large or small. And this is mercilessly exacted either by his officials or by the Duke himself. People are put to building new forts and repairing the old. It is as if the Duke feels that his dominion will only endure if the people are so repressed that they cannot revolt. As a result, everywhere people complain that, bad as were the ravages of the Tatars, those of their own kind are even worse. So, messengers are sent to Hungary and Moravia to search for Boleslav the Chaste, and when found, bring him back to rescue his tormented country. Meanwhile, Duke Conrad lays siege to Skala Castle, and finally captures it, when Clement, the voivode who is defending it, realizing that he can expect no help from Boleslav, seeks and obtains an agreement whereby he transfers his allegiance to the Duke. Skala is then burned, as is the new castle in Krakow." End quote. Conrad then retires to his lands in Masovia, having solidified his hold on Krakow by being, well, a tyrant. But he can't just sit back while everyone hates being ruled by him. After all, the nobles and knights of Krakow are starting to foment rebellion in favor of Boleslav the Chaste, so Conrad concocts a strategy to deal with these would-be rebels. Długosz tells us that in 1243, quote, "Eager to stifle this smoldering rebellion," he is anticipating the return of Boleslav with some Hungarian knights, Conrad sets out for Krakow. Arriving there early in June, he is received with tokens of honor and obedience, and decides to imprison the more eminent of the nobility, and above all, the voivode of Krakow. He announces a general assembly to be held on June 29th, ostensibly to deal with affairs of state, but in reality to enable him to arrest his opponents and get possession of the city of Krakow. When all are assembled, he gives a signal, and his men arrest the knights, who are then shackled and sent to Masovia, and there kept in dreadful conditions under strict guard. The voivode Clement, his brother, and a few others escaped to Hungary. However, one dark and stormy night 2 months later, the prisoners in Masovia managed to break their chains and escape one by one from their ghastly prison. Together, they eject the garrison and take over the castle and then the town. That accomplished, they set out joyfully and noisily to meet their prince, who is on his way back from Hungary. Voivode Clement also returns. They swear allegiance and loyalty to him, and accept him as their prince and lord. The gentry and the minor knights follow suit. Perturbed by this news, Duke Conrad marches on Krakow with a considerable force from several countries. But, by remaining with his defenses, Boleslav gives him no opportunity to do battle. Conrad then fortifies the Church of St. Andrew outside the city, digging trenches and raising ramparts, and installs a strong garrison commanded by his shield-bearer, and returns to Masovia to recruit an even stronger army. As soon as he is gone, the shield-bearer surrenders St. Andrew to Prince Boleslav, and thus the danger to the city is removed. Duke Conrad obtains help from Mieszko of Opole, and is sent reinforcements by Przemysl, the Duke of Poznan, and Lithuanians and Jakwingians. With these, he and his son Casimir invade Sandomierz. Their advance is barred by Prince Boleslav and his troops near the town of Suchodol, and battle is joined on May 25th. Duke Conrad has superiority of numbers, and perhaps of quality, but Prince Boleslav, whose cause is just, and for whom incessant prayers are said, thanks to the mercy of our Lord, defeats him. Many are killed and many wounded, many forced into shameful flight. After the battle, Prince Boleslav behaves with great moderation, freeing many of those taken prisoner, and being generous to others. His men are enriched by their share of the booty. After this triumph, the knights of Krakow, not content to have elected Boleslav as their prince once, proceed to do so a second time. And in a solemn service conducted by the Bishop of Krakow, he is crowned with a silver crown and conducted to the throne. End quote. Conrad is defeated by Boleslav the Chaste, but that's not going to be the end of Conrad. No. Conrad is loath to give up. He wants power, and he's going to get it one way or the other. And to be honest, I can't really blame him for his motivations. I mean, sure, he's power hungry, but thinking back to Boleslav the Bold's testament, the eldest Piast male is supposed to rule over Krakow. And Boleslav the Chaste is not only not the eldest Piast male, he's not even the eldest Piast male of his close family. Conrad is his uncle. Maybe it's arguable that Conrad does or doesn't have the best claim to the seniorate, but he at least has a better claim than Boleslav. It'd be like if one of your friends had something stolen from them. Your friend then dies, but the stolen good is out there. You run across the thief and you try to take it back from the thief. Sure, you don't technically have the 100% perfect legal right to that item, but in your eyes, you at least have more of a right to it than the thief. Now, I'm not saying that's an exact parallel, and I'm also not entirely positive that was Conrad's point of view. But if it was, it would be hard to argue with. But not only did people argue with it, they went to war over it, such as Poland in the 13th century. Speaking of war, that isn't going well for Conrad, so he decides to become what I'm going to call a land pirate. He invades Lublin and raids many of the towns, leaving them a wasteland, in the words of Długosz. Does this change the status quo? It does not. Does it make Conrad feel a little bit better? Yeah, I'd probably say yes. The years go by, and in 1246, Conrad decides he's going to take up the cause of himself again. He decides to invade Krakow once more. Długosz tells us that, quote, with the pagan Lithuanians providing assistance, he advances into his nephew's territory. Bolesław bars his advance at Zharzywów, and though knowing that his is the weaker force, engages him in battle. Many of the knights from Krakow and Sandomierz fall from blows received in the chest. Many others are taken prisoner. Bolesław himself leaves the battlefield with a few companions so as to avoid falling into the hands of Duke Conrad, from whom he can expect only the worst. Conrad, having laid the surrounding area waste, returns to Masovia with his booty. Soon after this, however, knowing that Prince Bolesław's strength has been broken, he marches into Krakow territory, and, not wishing to waste time capturing castles and towns, for the citizens of Krakow have disdainfully refused his call to surrender, secures 3 places with garrisons, and then attacks and captures the fort opposite the castle and town of Krakow, where the Rudawa flows into the Vistula, and another near the Tyniec monastery. These he garrisons with his own men, and then builds a 3rd fort and grants it to his son-in-law, Mieszko of Opole. But when Duke Conrad returns to Masovia, Bolesław and his knights besiege and capture this fort, while the other in the fork of the rivers of Vistula and Rudawa surrenders without a fight. Shortly after this, Conrad's son-in-law dies without progeny. End quote. Honestly, Conrad cannot catch a break. He invades, seems like there might be some success, but the people just really don't like him. And then, in 1247, Conrad dies. Infighting immediately breaks out among his descendants and rivals, which we'll turn our attention to in the coming episodes. For now, we're going to leave Conrad to rest. He wasn't an especially loved ruler, but at the very least, he did not give up. Now, before I wrap things up, I do want to draw attention to the fact that other things were in fact happening in Poland around this time. The Teutonic Knights are getting a bit big for their britches. Thanks for inviting them, Conrad. The Prussian pagans are holding on for dear life. The Ruthenians are increasing in power, and the Mongols are enjoying themselves quite immensely. But we'll revisit those threads next time. For now, I wanted to thank all of you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, your support would mean the world. In addition to making the History of Poland podcast possible, a few dollars a month also gives you access to a mini-series focused on the origins of the Holy Roman Empire, which is wrapping up right about now, and an upcoming series on the Mongol Invasion of Europe. It also helps support a new podcast that I'm creating, coming in June, focused on a daily history of World War I. More information on that in the coming weeks. If you want to support all these efforts, head over to patreon.com/historyofpolandpodcast. Until next time, thanks for listening.